Christmas episode. Excellent. I will not be doing a show next week, so I'm going to go a little bit longer on this one than I typically do on a normal Monday morning. And I am planning to be incredibly petty for some of the things that I want to cover today. Um, awesome. All righty, let's go. Christmas episode Collision Hub 2024. Okay. Last week I talked about kind of some adjuster coaching we do. We work with insurance companies. We don't really hide that we work with insurance companies. We don't really hide who we work for or who we don't work for. Although I do think it's incredible who people think we work for. We're gonna cover some of that when I get petty a little bit later. Anyway, so this conversation happened a couple of days ago, and it is an insight into the tone in which, as a shop, you operate. And I think you have to be aware of those tones and kind of how adjusters see. So this was a conversation, happened to be an IA, who was talking about how total losses are increasing, and in some ways laying that blame at the feet of the body shops. And you've heard this. You've heard insurance companies telling customers the reason premiums are increasing is because body shops are charging more to fix cars. But I found this quote, this post, and the dialogue that happened afterwards. I like when people want to have conversations on differing opinions in a logical and intelligent way. But this particular quote in the post just caught me, and I thought this is something that just for what in 2020 I had shops taking $50 an hour, and now they are asking for 65. So there's so many layers to that whole that whole post that are worth talking about. In other words, I had shops taking 50, meaning in 2020, shops were asking for more than $50 an hour, but we were able to talk them into taking less than what they wanted. So they were agreeing to do the $50 an hour. And now we have shops that are asking for 65. I wondered, well, if they're asking for 65, but what are you really paying? Like, so let's go back to the taking thing. But if we put that in perspective, in other words, the belief from this adjuster is that vehicles are totaling because shops are warning more per hour, not procedures have increased, required operations, meaning lines on the estimate have increased, part prices, the number of parts per repair. I mean, all kinds of things are affecting that. But if we look purely just at inflation, from 2020 to 2024, we've had some incredibly high years. 22, 21, and 22, for example, were extremely high. One of those years, I think 2022 inflation reached almost 9% that one year. And then when you watch inflation diagrams, like for instance, the one we've shared here, and I'll just put that back up real quick so everyone can see it. When the inflation percentage shows that inflation is down, that doesn't mean the prices went down. Once prices kind of reach a level, they stay there. And that 1% or 1.4% that we're going to have for this year for 2024 is that whenever the prices hit the high, we'll add 1.4 on top of that. If we look across the board at the industry for materials and what shops are paying for, cost of labor, cost of materials, all the consumables, everything that goes in a shop that isn't necessarily a clickable part within the estimating system, all of that's gone up. But the labor rate really hasn't kicked up with that, most notably material rate. So there are still shops, which for the life of me, I don't understand why. I didn't understand it in 1998, why shops were working off a P&M calculation within the estimating system. But there are shops that continue to do that. And we know come January, we're about to see another materials hike. That'll be 5 to 6% is what the estimation is. And so while the inflation itself is doing, hitting and spiking and dropping and spiking or whatever, our materials increases continue to do this. So shops, stop asking for anything, right? Like figure out your worth, figure out what you need to make, figure out your market rate, and hold to it. What this adjuster is basically saying is it's cute, you want to get paid more, I'm going to keep trying to pay you less. And I don't blame them. That's their job. That's what they're supposed to do. But when you take, and by take, I mean uploaded estimates, when you allow to adjust your labor rate on an uploaded estimate, you are saying this is the market. So if you want 65, but you're taking 50, you're worth 50. That's it. That's all you're worth. Like you're not worth more because you want more, right? You're only worth what you are demanding to be paid. So as we go into 2025, if you believe you're worth more, if you believe your trade, if you believe your craft, if you believe your talent, whatever it is worth more, well, then you got to start demanding it and you got to stand on it, right? So if you want $65 an hour, then charge that. Whatever the indemnification that an insurer tries to do or says they owe or whatever, that's between that policy, that person, and their insurance company. It has nothing to do with you. But if you continue to accept or take less than what you believe you're worth or what we even know you need to survive, then it doesn't get better. It stays the same or it deteriorates until we're at a part now where we believe that you are drastically behind what you should be in a marketplace. But I cannot stress to you how important it is that you actually charge what you believe you're worth. And by charging it, what are you uploading? So if I'm going to get caught in this debate on what is the market rate in your area, I'm not going to go around and look at a survey. It's why I hate these stupid body shop survey crap that they try to sell you on and that you guys participate in. I don't care what you've surveyed at. I mean, I can walk into any shop in North America and see on the wall, they say they're $125 an hour. It's kind of like going to a hotel and you look on the back of that hotel door and it says this room's worth $900 a night. And you're like, but I paid 75. Like, where does that come from? I don't want to know what you think or what you're hoping or your dreams and wishes of being paid are. That's what a survey is. I only want to know what you're actually charging. And we get that based on your uploaded estimates. So if you want to believe and you want to change your market, start thinking about what you're actually uploading and what you're saying that you take, because that labor rate that you upload is what your take price is, right? It's like listing the car for 10,000, but you'll take 6. So, I mean, that's how you are perceived. It is perceived that this is a bartering business in which you will ask high and the insurer will come in low. And that's where we come up with our pricing. And we have to change that narrative. Like, I understand how we got there, but we have to change that narrative. So the next interesting conversation from this week, these happen all the time. I just thought I would address it. Like I told you, I'm feeling pretty petty today. It's kind of my superpower. But as posts go out, whether it's a post repair inspection, whether it's an estimate review, whether it's just a comment or whatever, I am frequently met by people that always like to do what I like to call the backhanded compliment. We appreciate what you guys, so Larry and the rest of the people out there, we appreciate what you guys are trying to do, but this is just way too big of a problem. You're never going to make a difference and you're never going to win. So you might as well just give up and go with the flow. And this industry is just full of what we like to call the clown sultans that have given up and just are going along with the flow, right? That just teach enough where you're not controversial and nobody hates you and you're everybody's best friend and you can just get along kind of thing. And that's that second compliment where people tell me, look, love what you're doing, 100% agree with you, but I'm taking the approach where this is my favorite. I believe I can make a difference from the inside. That never works, folks. I've heard that one my entire career. Once I'm in there, I'm going to be able to make a change. Or I think that it's best. I think that we work together and that, we're partners and I'll be able to affect some small changes that'll benefit everyone. I've heard that one my entire career where it's like, let's just get along and we'll be able to make little changes here and there that it will eventually benefit all parties in the industry. And then my reply to that is, well, how is it better? I mean, so for my 40 something years in this industry as a participant or part of it, I've heard both of these my entire career. It's too big. You might as well just, give up, give in, play along, go along with the flow. And then I've had the people that tell me that, well, they're going to be the nice and politically correct way and they're going to make small changes. And then I just basically ask, does anybody feel it's better? Do we think we're anywhere better than we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, et cetera? So how are either one of those philosophies working? I did a class called The Power of Disruption, right? What disruptors are. I think that there's a book back there on disruptors. But our country, and in any country throughout all of dawn of time, the evolution of society and civilization is founded on disruptors, people that just completely come in and kick over the tables and knock down the buildings and make big changes. United States is a disruptor, right? We're a group of small people that picked a fight with a king and all the king's army. Nothing comes from getting along. Nothing comes from the status quo. Nothing comes from trying to be the good guy. So it really truly is a David and Goliath. If you don't think that there is any way to make change, then quit. Right, leave. But for the love of donuts, please don't just get along, because as you just get along, as you take only what you are given, then you solidify that. So you can't complain that cost of labor is too high and we can't get people that want to stay in this industry and the insurance companies are being mean when you're accepting that plate that they're serving you every day. So if you're not going to fight, then please get out of the way of the rest of the people that want to. This is a great industry. It's a it's an important part, right? We were deemed an essential business during COVID. We serve a great purpose, but we have to serve that purpose with some integrity, meaning you've got to fix cars right. You've got to use the right parts. You've got to use the right tools. You've got to use the right methods. That's not free. And it really truthfully can't be done for what some of the offered amounts or rates or processes or estimates are. So if we're into that very much David versus Goliath mentality, we need a lot more Davids, right? We need a lot more of them in this industry. We need less people that want to get along. We need less people that want to be friends. We need less people that don't want to kick up the dust a little bit. And we need more Davids. We need more people that are willing to walk out in the middle and face that big giant, that big corporation, the people with all the money, with all the attorneys, with everything, and throw a rock and hit them straight in the nose, right? We're not going out there to shake their hand. David didn't go out there to ask them if they wanted to debate or talk, or could they sit down and maybe have a meeting. He went out there and hit them right between the eyes. So we really need a lot more of that. And I think if you're one of those people that have told yourself that you need to give in and give up and get along, have a long, hard conversation with yourself. I get tickled that most of the people that say these things to me about what they believe our industry is, truthfully, I go to their public social media pages and find that they're politically in a completely different place. So the way they believe about our country or where our country is going or whatever is in stark contrast to how they believe about how our industry should behave and the things we need to do. So I would love people to align a little bit more of their politics with how they feel about our industry. And I think at that point, we could really affect some incredible and major change. All right, interesting. A series of cases and a series of events have happened. And I really do believe we're at this like tipping point. We've kind of hit the pinnacle. We're at the top of the mountain of where we are with a lot of things. Step one, what's the future of DRP between insurers and DRPs? Several years ago, I basically made a statement that I said, I thought DRPs had about 5 more years and then they would go away. Well, here we are at 5 years and they haven't gone away. So my timetable was off. But I do think massive litigation is coming, most likely in the form of a class action. And I'll tell people that it's not because I believe DRP necessarily is this terrible, horrible thing, although it kind of became that. In its original phases, we go back to the early 90s, there was some really good things about DRP. But it was handled and treated completely different. So what are insurers facing? Well, when I look at the stack of files that are on my desk from people, legal cases, people asking for advice, expert testimony, expert review, deposition, preparation, any of those things. When we were training adjusters, and I'm not even the good old days, right? I'm not that old. I don't think my kid thinks I'm that old, but we knew as an insurer, I can do two things. One, I can accept repair, meaning I take possession of the property, I perform the repairs and I return it, or I can indemnify for repair. I can't do both. If I accept repair, then I accept the liability for that repair. So in other words, if I'm directing repair, I'm responsible for it all, not the shop that's doing it. The shop then becomes acting at my direction. When DRP was set up, there was a whole lot to avoid that, really. Like, the customer still has the choice, the customer chooses, the shop makes the repair, the shop has the warranty, etc. But now, because we're not training adjusters, we have a rapid amount of adjuster interference. So when I get these files, there are emails in the file. There is direct correspondence on behalf of the insurer to the repair shop and to the consumer, changing the way the shop wrote the estimate. Shop writes, replace on something. The adjuster calls them back and says, I'm not replacing it. You've got to repair it. Shop's calling insurance companies and saying, we believe this car's a total loss and shouldn't be fixed. And the adjuster writing back and going, we're not totaling it. You're going to fix it. I am well aware that the shop should have stood their ground. The shop should have said, hey, we're not changing our estimate. I'm well aware of the legal issues of a shop changing their estimate and their repair plan without consulting with the customer. That's a whole other problem that may affect the shop at a later date. But those are things that adjusters right now, we'll use that term loosely, aren't qualified to make. I mean, the people that are, there was a time we had crash units, or we had ex estimators, people that had been in body shops that were the original. When I think about Service First, when it first started, those were some pretty great guys. We can all have bad stories about them, but I was impressed with them, right? We had the crash unit. There was well supported. There was well documentation. There was science and reasoning and process behind if a shop was asked to consider something, and it wasn't just like, I think so. Now the adjusters giving directions to body shop have no training. They have no real experience. They're just saying, well, I saw another shop do it. And half the time they're making that up. They hadn't seen shit. It's a default negotiation position. Well, other people do it. You should do it too, right? There's really no warranty now. So we have file after file where a customer has selected the insurance company's DRP. They've gone there, they've gotten the repairs are gone bad. The customer calls the insurer back and says, hey, these repair sucks. And the insurer just basically goes, not a problem. You need to take it up with the shop. Like, they're not, because they don't have field reps, there's not field people managing the DRPs much anymore. The customer then gets left out in the cold. And I think that you go to a lot of the insurance company websites now, and they don't have that warranty anymore. They don't say we warranty it. They basically say the shop warranties it. That's a big distinction. If you go back to the 90s, we warranty the repair, right? Like, you could come back, you would get a DRP manager, they could make a decision, and then they turn around and hand the bill back to the shop and go, pay this and make it whole. But that's kind of fallen off. So you don't have all that support. There's no quality control anymore. Better or worse, there used to be DRP field managers that were out doing random, or DRP field adjusters that were doing random inspections and re-inspections and, monitoring shops. And you would have shops get put on suspension. That may be a 30-day or a 60-day suspension that they were removed from the program. There were, what would you call them? There was performance improvement plans that were written. Shops had to meet certain criteria or say that they had taken, there was, whether that was good or bad, but there was some quality control, and then there was accountability. If you screwed up, you got kicked off the program, or you got suspended for a very, very long amount of time. Now there's no quality control. And when you make an insurer aware of a quality issue, sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5 times on the same location, those shops are not put on a performance plan. They're not suspended. There is no accountability whatsoever. I believe that's going to be a huge legal problem. I think we're one or two bad things away from someone being able to have a really nice class action that says the insurer is responsible or bears some accountability or responsibility for something that's going to happen in a DRP program. It's just too far out of control for all of the benefits that it gives. The legal aspect of having a list of shops in which the insurance company says you should use these, and there being some perception that these shops are better than other shops because they're on here. And the emails going back telling customers, well, we can't warranty if you get your vehicle repaired there, but we can warranty it if you get it here. So now, besides whatever you have in legal print, your adjuster has entered you into an agreement. It's just going to bubble up. So there are already some death claims that are involving that are going to be some really interesting depositions. There's some other ones coming up that are involving that, and those insurers are going to land smack dab in the middle of having to answer a lot of questions, not the shop. We had one. So if you come to our adjuster class in February, we have one that happened that ended up settling out of court where the insurer was deposed. And I think you will find it very interesting what the insurer had to say about the shop. If I was a shop, I would not want to be a DRP. I can't, I mean, but not even the pricing, or you can't fix cars right, or any of that. The legal throwing under the bus that happens is just, you don't want to get into that. Basically, you're giving up everything to make them happy to stay on the program, and then when the lawsuit happens, you're toast, right? Like, they're going to make you the villain. So hopefully you have really good record keeping that you can keep them from jumping out of the boat with you. So save those emails when they tell you not to replace a frame rail or not to do whatever. You're probably going to need them. But it's just gotten in the way claims is advanced, and claim adjusters and field management and whatever. I think DRP has just kind of run its course, and I think we'll see some cases pop up 25, 26 that'll do that. And then that also brings in what's the future of OEM certification and certified repairs. What Tesla's doing about restricted parts, the whole case up in New York where Tesla shops just got subpoenaed to turn stuff over. We'll see. I like parts restricted programs. There are some parts that for the general safety of the public, not every shop should probably be able to order. So we like that, but we'll see what happens. OEs have just lost control of it as bad as insurers have lost control of it. So we saw Honda send out this email this week. As Richie Basacco put in one of the things, obviously Audi had done that a couple of years ago as well. I'm not sure why Honda did this or why Audi even did it or whatever. I have an assumption of why, right? I believe that it's getting harder and harder to get shops to want to stay on the certification program. The shops that are wanting to stay on the certification program are also DRPs. Those DRPs come with part usage KPIs. So you can't use all OE parts, right? So we don't want to lose the shop. So instead of having a thing that says our certified shop should follow our repair procedures and only use OE parts, we'll just skip that little position statement and we'll tell them it's okay, but they just need to have the customer sign these disclosures that they acknowledge parts. If that is a belief that it's a liability release. So if somebody's sitting in a legal department said, hey, if we just have the customers acknowledge, I mean, it's this OE certified repair shop, but they're going to use aftermarket parts. We don't want to get sued. Let's have them sign this waiver. That's actually the worst thing in my mind you could do. I'm going to have more fun with this statement as part of questioning than I would without it. So I believe you have OE repair interference, just like you have adjuster repair interference. There are emails that pop up where someone from within the OE gives a shop permission to not follow written repair procedures, specifically when insurers get involved. They start to waffle a little bit. The OEs offer no warranty support either. So we have multiple cases wherein customers have looked on the OE's website, found a shop, gone to the shop. The car's been completely and totally butchered, and the OE offers no help to their consumer. And also, they don't suspend the shop. So you are well aware of an incorrect repair, and more aware than an insurer should be. So in other words, an insurer can claim, well, we really didn't understand it, what the bad repair issues were. You made the car and you wrote the repair procedures, right? So you are very, very aware of that. And same thing, no quality control. You've got people that go out and do these little surveys, but there really is no quality control once a year. I think to a detriment. It's one thing when an insurer sees an estimate, it's a completely different thing when an OE sees an estimate. So when these OE programs are requiring shops to send up their estimates, I get it. They're checking part sales. There's somebody that's got a KPI that wants to be able to say that the program led to X number of part sales. But you're also looking at the lines of an estimate. And so you should know when a car is not being repaired properly and procedures aren't being followed, but you're not intervening. So I can prove that you got the estimate and that you saw it, but you did nothing to intervene when a safety thing was there. And so there's no accountability. I think, I mean, and I have to think, I think we all know a jury will hold an OE extremely accountable, and they have, when we look at other OE cases, they're seen as a big faceless corporation with no heart or whatever. And so if a customer is deemed damaged by the corporate machine, there's usually what we call the nuclear verdicts. So where is this going to go? There's a lot of ethical and legal questions that insurers need to be asking themselves about whether DRP continues. And there's a lot of legal and ethical questions that OEs need to be asking themselves on whether their certification program needs to continue. If you're not supporting your own written position statements about why only OE parts should be used, and you're allowing all this other, then you're not allowing, the procedure. So, for example, great, you're gonna be a Honda shop, you're gonna have the customer sign that they understand part type. But what if that part type was a used quarter panel or a used B pillar? There's no way to put those in the new Honda with that new body structure and the way it is. So even if the customer understands what that part type is, then they don't understand that the procedures based on the way the Honda is made doesn't allow for those parts to be used. So why aren't we having some sort of disclosure where the shop has to make the customer sign that they've explained the procedures that go with these parts, right? It's great that you understand part types, but then do you understand the potential safety issues should you accept certain part types on your vehicle? And I think that's what's missing. And I believe that's what's going to cause them the most damage if they ever have to ask questions on it. So in some ways, it's kind of like deposition candy. I think Honda's going to have to answer a lot more questions because they have the form than if they didn't. Same thing with Audi. I think you're going to have to answer a lot more questions because you have the form other than you didn't. But interesting. All right, so let's talk about my hot list. It's where I like to get really petty. This is my pettiness. I can tell people it's my superpower. Here we go. Hot list issues for 2025 that are on my Christmas list. Number one, scanning and calibration. I've got some big plans for this one after the first of the year. But here's what you need to know. If you are using anything, like if you're using a remote scanning system, if you're using a local mobile provider, whatever you're doing, let's hope you're not trying to do this yourself with aftermarket equipment in your shop. But whatever you're using, you need to review any and all contracts and agreements you have with service providers, and probably not just scanning and calibration, any service provider you have, look at it. Does it specifically say what you believe you're agreeing to? So recently, we had the issue where we know Aztec's not doing OE scans, right? Like they even have this program that'll tell you when you don't have to use an OE scan tool. I get it, there's pricing involved, and everybody wants to make more money per service unit than they did before. Then we had AirPro issue that happened where we had a shop that believed that their contract, when they set it up in 2018, was OE scans only. They found out they had not been getting OE scans. That was on the invoice that they hadn't, they assumed, right? Never make an assumption. I get it. And then we had the conversation where, AirPro believes that their technicians get to make the decision on what scan tool is used. But then they've said that there are some shops that can set up an agreement for all OE scans. I talked to a shop last week that said that they had that agreement even after all of this turmoil had happened. But then they went back and looked at their invoices and they weren't getting all OE scans. So here's the thing. Does the contract specifically say what you believe it says or the services you're signing up for? If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. It doesn't matter what verbal conversation you've had with somebody. I mean, they're verbal, I get it, but at the bottom line, they're going to come back and say, here's the contract, here's what you agreed to, here's the terms of the contract, you can't even sue us, you would have to go to, whatever those terms of that contract are. Does it actually say what you believe you are getting? So if you sign up with a company and you only want OE scans, does it say that you're only going to get OE scans? If it's not specifically in the contract agreement, will they give that to you in writing? So if I have a company that's on the phone with me that goes, no, we're going to have your account, it's going to be special, you're going to get only OE scans, put it in writing. And then if they won't put it in writing to you, then that's probably you have a problem, right? Maybe you've found the trueness of them. And then what happens when you don't get an OE scan? So if you've signed up for OE scans only, you don't get one and you get sued, what is that going to mean? What does technician discretion mean? So if they go, well, it's up to the technician's discretion. Okay, well, no, because I want something in my file that says it's OE scans only. So then I'm going to say, look and see exactly what the warranty is. And this isn't just the pass-throughs, right? We've focused on the 3 pass-through companies this year a lot because of of all of the press around them. But if you're using a mobile company, a local company, or whatever, what is exactly the warranty that they provided for you? You go online to some of these companies and the printed warranties are garbage. We pay up to $35 for towing, or you get X number of miles and whatever, 3 days. Like, that's not much of a warranty. And then what does it actually include? What are their legal duties to you? And is that in writing? Um, you can see there's the whole verbal thing. And then when you get down to the nuts and bolts, this was my favorite. There was an email that went out that says Aztec's going to give you $31 million of coverage. Technically, they have a policy for $31 million, but it doesn't mean that you get that $31 million, right? That's how insurance works. And then had to come back. Repair Driven News asked for some clarification, and it basically said, well, it's case by case basis, and if you don't follow the OE, then you're probably going to be liable. And I'm thinking, but you don't want to use the OE. So I find it very interesting, right? If a company tells you that if you don't follow the OE, you may be liable, but their business model is built on not following the OE all the time, you need to be very careful with who you choose to do your business to. And then if you choose to stay with somebody, then make sure you have some sort of really good, solid understanding in writing. It's not writing it to happen. I don't care what anybody promises you. And then the next thing is for everybody that you sublet or use or provide or have service provisions with, you need to develop a QC process, right? How do you keep checking this? How do you remind yourself to check it? We're creatures of habit. We get into ruts. We have so many things on our plate that we just can't stop and service everything when it happens. So make sure that you have some sort of QC, if that's a remote scan, if it's your glass guy, if it's whatever that you are expecting and selling and promising another party, the customer that you're doing, that that's happening. So in other words, if you're out there promising customers that you're delivering OE scans, you're charging for OE scans, you're telling the insurers it's OE scans and then it's not, that's fraud. It's consumer fraud, right? So it can be unintentional, you didn't know, and it can be intentional. And I think right now there's enough press out there to know that you probably need to be checking and verifying everything that you say you're doing services for. To tag on to that, right? So my hot button issues for 2025, as I look at more and more of these ADAS related suits that are popping up, we've got a death and two deaths and a coma. We've got all these, ADAS gets a lot of attention because Tesla got a lot of attention. There's a plaintiffs legal association thing, and there's people going around giving presentations on how to sue Tesla. I have a recording of a 30-minute presentation from an attorney to a plaintiffs group at a state gathering, telling people here's how to sue Tesla. And it's really interesting, actually. But as that goes around, obviously anything kind of ADAS and software related, we talked about last week, 43% of OE recalls are software related recalls, and that's pretty much ADAS and all those things are software. You're going to have more suit claims. Well, in addition to, did you do it right? And how can you, let's say this comes back to you, the car actually was involved in a collision, and we can't sue Ford Motor Company, so now it falls back in your lap, just like the John Eagle case did. And we come and we look at your documentation. Yes, we're going to want to know what tool did you use? Did you use the OE tooling? Did you use the OE targeting? Like, who did what? Were your facilities right? Where did you take it out in the parking lot and do it, or did you do it right? But then the other thing that's going to pop up is radar compliant paint codes. So we started talking about that this year. At the first CIC, there was a great presentation. And then Daniel, as part of our Refinish 20 group, did a very nice hour-long presentation on radar compliant paint codes, what they are, what their limitations are, when you should be looking at them. So if you did all the OE scan tools and you went through all that, but your painter didn't do the right paint on the vehicle, can I say that as the OE, well, it didn't work because the painter didn't have the right paint and that interfered? Probably, yeah. Yeah. I mean, anybody that can point a finger anywhere is going to do that when these cases pop up. So make sure that you are having this conversation. There are some paint companies that have done very well producing materials about it. AkzoNobel is one of them that has made some really nice printed materials around radar compliant paint codes. But if you want to take this class, it's a 1-hour class. Daniel did a fantastic job. He covers multiple paint companies in the presentation and really breaks it down on how it's going to affect your paint shop, how it affects the labor lines on the estimates and the changes that you'll need to make because of it. You can email Melanie. She'll get you in touch with that class. I think it's also on the website under estimating classes. I believe you can buy it. But like I said, Damien did a fantastic job. It's one of those things that's the other just when you thought you had it all covered because you had straightened out your scan tool issues, then this one comes along and bites you in the butt. But I have noticed lately when I'm reading through these engineering reports and people that are inspecting cars as part of these ADAS complaints and lawsuits, they've now started asking this. So we need to be aware of it too and asking about it in our shop. All right, documentation. As you move forward, 2025. Every time I get a call from a shop that says they started off with, I can't believe the insurer wants to do this, whether they don't want to pay a bill about a repair, they don't want to pay a storage bill, a tow bill, whatever it is. My very next question is, how did you document what happened? So if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. Phone conversations are a waste of your time if you're not gonna, you've got to follow them up in email. So 2025, get really good at written documentation, and that documentation needs to be validated, meaning it can't just be yours. So just what the adjuster writes in their log or just what you write in your log, is it validated documentation? In other words, that's your opinion. You wrote your opinion of what happened in the phone call. So whenever that anything in an email, and then copy everybody that needs to be on the email. So if an adjuster calls me and says, we're not coming to the shop, okay, great, hey, appreciate it, fine, hang up, email to the adjuster, carbon copy to the customer. Per our conversation today, you indicated that Allstate will not be coming out and inspecting Mrs. Smith's vehicle. We are at this time suggesting that you contact the customer and discuss a settlement resolution or whatever that is, but you've got to put everything in writing. It just has to happen. It has to become second nature to you that you're always doing it, which means for a lot of you, you're going to have to change the way you use the phone. Probably want to stop forwarding things to your voice, to your cell phone. Probably want to stop giving your cell phone out to people. If you can't, if you're answering the phone when you're in the car, when you're in the drive-up line at Wendy's, when you're in whatever, you're not in a position to document the file. So make sure that you're always in a position to document when you are having conversations about customers and their vehicles and compensation and how those things are going to work. So limit your accessibility unless you have the ability to fire things off if you're in the line at Wendy's waiting on your, your order or whatever. So be very, very careful with those things. All right. So documentation. I have a class on that too. For a small amount of time, and we'll talk about why that class is what's going on with that class, right? But there's a class for that, and there are other people that will teach documentation. I'm just like I said, if it's not validated in writing, meaning somebody else needs to be on that email so that everybody can confirm that that was what took place in the discussion. Stop. Log notes are not necessarily confirmed documentation anymore. We find this when we're running into attorneys on these total loss cases. All right, next. Legal boxing, so that pulls right in. I am in my 18 years of Collision Hub, usually a couple of times a month, I get these little cease and desist or we're going to sue you letters, and I chuckle and I think it's funny because if you're not getting, what I used to tell my adjusters, if nobody hates you, you're not doing your job right. If I'm not getting letters, I'm not doing my job right, right? Like, fine. My attorney sends me Christmas presents because of it. He actually sent a really nice Christmas present this year because he's gotten a lot of these. So here it goes. We are involved in some current legal boxing over some certain claims and cases. Some of that is because as part of when you work for an insurance company, you have intellectual property agreements, which basically means any classes, anything, even books. Like I had to depart. I think one of the things that ran me out of the insurance industry the fastest was I was in the process of writing a book that was outside of claims and outside of the industry. And the intellectual property agreement that I was given, that is basically anything I create while I'm employed belongs to them. We were working on a Corvette restoration book at the time or whatever, but and it was like, no. Unless you want to pay like the publisher's cost and all the things that go with getting a book to market or whatever. But so a lot of these intellectual property agreements that are pretty involved. Like I said, I didn't sign my last one and I ended up delaying and skating out. But a lot of our training is not there's nothing truly copied. I think once you learn something and it's general knowledge, you can't claim it. Now, if I have copies of documents and things that we use, but why would I use documentation from a 1998 class? That would make sense. Okay, but here are some classes that are under fire right now. One, we have an independent adjuster class that will start in February where we're going to break down independent adjusting. There's a couple of insurers that don't really like that class too much. And I know why, and there's a specific area of that class, mostly post-repair inspections. We will be reading the depositions from a real case. So that case settled without any non-disclosure agreements. The consumer is very adamant that it be a learning issue, but we will be reading that because we think that you guys will learn. Specifically, if you want to be an independent adjuster and you want to do RTAs and you want to do total losses and diminished value, if you want to do all of that stuff and be a public adjuster, so to speak, there's some real training you need because some of these people calling themselves independent adjusters are causing some messes right now for some consumers. So that class will be in February. It's we're only going to take about 10 people in it. It's not even close to being filled up, but they're already a little nervous about that. So Larry has an RTA class. So Allstate lost their lunch last week and started really going crazy about how the RTA class is costing them money and more people. I don't believe Larry's RTA class is costing an insurer more money than it did before. Larry likes to think it is. There's a lot of people talking about RTAs in the business that have nothing to do with collision. I think just the overall awareness of RTA is up. But anyway, that class, it's a 4-hour RTA class. Larry went really, really in depth with it. Mark helped provide a lot of documentation and a lot of the stuff that was in it. That RTA class is under fire for a couple of things that are in the class. I'm not worried about it. I think mostly they just want me to pull it down. A lot of the stuff you get told to pull it down while they're deciding whether they want to move forward, and all they really want is you to take the class down so that people stop buying it for a while. I'm not taking the class down. I'm not taking any of these classes down. It's fine. I don't think Larry's class is their problem. It just is something that you can go after and whatever. So it's a good class. It's 4 hours long. We have two classes on Department of Insurance complaints. Those I don't understand because it's a open to the public civic. There's no legal issues with teaching people about Department of Insurance complaints. Those two classes are staying up. One was taught by a shop in Pennsylvania that was really, really good at writing DOI complaints. So there's our version, just kind of my class on the overview of the Department of Insurance. And then there's the class from the shop on how they use the Department of Insurance complaints. The total loss and file documentation class, that one's been under attack for a couple of years now. Honestly, I see that one going away. Like the whole thing around that one right now is really slowed down. Thankfully, this is one thing that I guess I'm glad people started, I don't want to say copying, but copying. Other people started teaching total loss classes and including bailment law. So obviously there's a reason why insurance companies have Bailey and Baylor written into the policy. And so you better know bailment law for your state if you're going to do total losses and charge for it. Because other people are teaching it. In other words, once something becomes so mass and it's out there, it's really hard to control it. So I guess I better say thank you to the other people that are teaching that one. So I think that one's going to dial down, but obviously our total loss and file documentation class is still available and anybody can get those if they want to. I will not be taking those down. I guess I'm keeping a family in business for fees. Okay. So this is, I get accused a lot. I'm accused. People get upset. Give a shit if they get upset. Okay. People think that there are certain things that Collision Hub promotes or does because we're being paid to. And I guess maybe in a way I wish that was the case because I'd make more money. We do a lot of work with companies. Companies really have us make things that you don't even know we've made. So you're consuming all the time, all the stuff in the industry that's really a Collision Hub product and you don't even know it. When it makes Collision Hub's social media or we're promoting it or I'm talking or Larry's talking about it or whatever, it's things we like. Like for instance, I really like Celeste. Not a huge Carliner fan, but Larry is. So Larry talks about, I mean, like, there's no money issue there. It's just the things that we like. And then people get upset and think that they'll tell each other behind the back that you should get together. So I just thought I would be petty and tell you, here's all the people I actually do like and the people I think you should be spending your money with. So if you want to increase the awareness of the industry, if you want to make things better for everybody involved, spend your money with companies that support you and share your values, and don't spend your money with companies that are actively working against you every day that they can. So companies we like. Well, you've heard us talk about Derek and the team at Crytek a lot. They have some great products. They originally were a Rekey product, and if you can go back 5, 8 years into the online groups, you can see that Larry and I used to just beat Derek over the head, merciless on every occasion about his Rekey tool. We're not fans of Rekey. There's some legal issues. We've had Erica explain those issues of rekeying to people before. But all he had was a Rekey tool, and we just beat him up and beat him up and beat him up and beat him up. And then, we always tell shops, if you are going to rekey, we think it's stupid, but if you are going to do it, for the love of God, don't do it on your own. Don't waste your time. Have it automated. So, but since then, becoming friends with Derek, and here's a guy that just doesn't get mad when he gets, yelled at on the internet. He calls you and goes, "Hey, I'd like your feedback and I'd like to learn more," or whatever. He's come up with a lot of different things. So he has instant DV. You can help customers understand the diminished value of their vehicle. It costs them $50. There's no need for them to go hire a $400 or $500 independent for that, unless it's a specialty car or unless they just want to, right? But here's an easy way. He's got the e-audit tool, so you can upload your estimate and insurance company's estimate, and it'll give you a report on what the differences are, because sometimes estimates get confusing and it's hard for customers to understand where the differences are. He has now launched SmartWrite, which partners him up with other people we like Billy Vallely, and what he's got with his company that does appraisals and DV and RTAs and all that stuff out on the East Coast. It partners up other people we like, and it helps shops out in the process. So if you need an estimate written, if you're short on an estimator, if you don't want to hire any more estimators, and you just want to have negotiators in your shop, whatever you want to do, that SmartWrite tool is really great. And then total losses. So if you're on a DRP, you're not making anything. Total loss estimates are pure total loss for you. It's wasted time that you could be working on things that are going to make money or bring money in the shop. And so Derek has a really a cost-effective way. I think it's $150. Let somebody else write your totals. I mean, if I had to think of what an estimator is worth hourly, and I've got them wasting time writing totals in my shop, that's just a complete waste. So as 2025 goes along, if you're not doing business with Crytek, please consider all the different things that they have that can help you. And if you don't know how it can help you, well, then at least get on their website, crytek.com, schedule a conversation. You may get to talk to the other brother Larry. So they have their own Larry. We have our Larry. Crytek has their Larry. But you may be able to have a conversation and set up and ask them about services, and that you can tell them about your business, and you can find a way and see if they can help you find more time. There's only 24 hours in a day. There's only one of you, so to speak. I always tell people the best thing a shop has is its human resources, the people that are in it. I can't necessarily duplicate those people. I'll never find others like them. So if I can free up your time, that's the only gift really I can give a shop, and Crytek helps with that. Eagle MMS. We talked about inflation earlier. We talked about material increases coming again. For some of us, it's been a 200-300% in material prices. You simply can't work off the P&M formula anymore. There are multiple ways to itemize and bill for additional material. We love Eagle. Yanni was a technician. Derek and I, full disclosure, wanted to build our own material calculator. We had started to sketch it out, and then we meet this Yanni kid, and we're like, well, screw it. There's no point. We're not going to build anything better, so we might as well just, help this kid do his thing. No contracts. It's month to month. Cancel anytime you want. Works with any material, anything. So you don't have to be committed to one particular product or product line in your shop to have it work. You don't have to be dealing with a particular jobber. You don't have to have the painter pour off the scale. I mean, the estimators can create this by highlighting a three-dimensional map of a car. There's just so many things that it does. Do you get paid on every claim? God, no. You're not getting paid now on every claim. I mean, half of you are probably, I don't want to say half of you, 100% of you are estimating for things and the insurance company's telling you no. So why would this be any different? But you'll get it 20, 30% of the time. And that 20 or 30% of the time will add thousands of dollars. So we've shown some what shops are getting, what their profitability on material was before Eagle and what it is after. And those shops will tell you, no, I don't get it all the time. Ironically, right now we're finding it easier for DRPs to get paid for invoiced materials than it is for the independents, which is kind of ironic. So be sure and just commit in 2025 to getting paid more for your materials. Opus, this is my shameless plug for a company I like, right? Like at one point in my career, we have worked with all three remote scanning systems. There's actually a fourth company out there that's kind of floating around that I don't know much about. We've worked with all three of these. We've had all three of these on shows. We've had their people talk. We've had all of these things. And only one so far hasn't misled or just straight up lied to me. Opus doesn't necessarily, I mean, Opus doesn't agree with half the shit that comes out of my mouth or Larry's or whatever. But they're open to dialogue. They're accountable. I can call them at any time and I get an answer. It may not always be the answer I want to hear, but I'll get an answer out of them. And so far, so good. So if you're thinking about a remote scanning company, do business with one that's not actively trying to work against you or cost you money or do a lot of things. I always say subject to change, right? Like there's so many people I've worked with, and then 3 months later, it's like, well, damn, right? So, but these guys they've caught a lot of grief across the industry because they do talk to us, and they, we worked at SEMA with them, we've done some things, and so there's other scan companies in the business that are actively. There's a bunch of lawsuits in the background, and I just anytime somebody gets picked on for not choosing a side, so to speak, and being, I think that should be rewarded. So if you don't have a scan company right now, check them out. If you're using something else, check them out. Like there's a webinar coming up. We put a link on our the Collision Facebook page. They're doing a webinar. They're all informational webinars. Go sit in on them. Knowledge is power. But I like companies that are willing to say no. That's anybody that tells you yes all the time is definitely cheating you some way, some form or fashion. And Opus has been real good at being just both hands on the deck, transparent in everything they've done, and I appreciate that so far. All right. Then there's some other companies that we work with that we just appreciate. Like we've been BASF is another company that is open to dialogue, and the negative feedback, we appreciate that. SADA, I've been spraying with SADA for a longest time. I have a SADA paint gun and a PPG tattoo, as well as I do have a State Farm tattoo. But SADA recently, so Dan-Am, it was a local, it was owned in the United States up in Minnesota for the last 40 or so years. Canute, they sold back, so Germany has bought it back, and same thing that happened in Canada a couple of years. So there's been some changes there, but it's still the same people, and they do lots of great education. They are mad supporters of Skills USA and the refinishing competition within Skills USA, as is BASF, as is 3M as well, and Enterprise, all those companies up here. They go above and beyond in how they support our industry plus the future of our industry. And so definitely reward them. 3M is the same way. 3M puts out a ton of educational content weekly. If you're watching their YouTube channel, if you're watching their social media, you can go up to you can visit St. Paul and you can take classes from 3M. And so they go above and beyond doing things for people that cost them money. Making these classes, we covered a press conference from SEMA where BASF and 3M have partnered up and they're making a bunch of education. That stuff's not cheap. I know, like we charge people to make training modules. Those training modules can exceed 50 grand a piece or whatever, but so 3M and BASF are spending their own money to educate shops and make material available. So reward those companies that do that. Sometimes it may mean their products are a little bit more expensive. And then Enterprise, for as long as I've been in this industry, Enterprise has been a part of the collision repair space. So they're not just a rental car company that's mostly focused on their airports and whatever. They have always been a part of the collision industry, and they give back the collision engineering program, the things that they've done. That's their own money. That's from the Taylor family. They put their own money out there, millions of dollars for technician education and scholarships and stuff. There are people that want to talk about promoting the future of the industry. There are people that really literally put their money where their mouth is. And they are one of those companies. So when those really annoying is the car ready rental calls comes in to the shop and they're asking for rental extensions and delivery dates and all that, just find a little holiday kindness, because that company does a whole lot for the industry. So I always say support the ones that are, spend your money wisely and spend your money in places where it comes back to you. Like sometimes that's the best way. Power the wallet are some of the best things that we can do. So Merry Christmas. Hopefully everybody has a good week. I am going to take most of this week off and most of next week off as well, which is why there will not be a coffee talk for next week. Jason has a tech tip video that will come out next week. So he's going to pick up I guess the load while I take a little bit of time off, but we hope that you finish the year strong. And then we hope that you make some plans to have a really great 2025. Is it going to be easy? No. Had a shop call me last week thinking about quitting, closing the doors after the first of the year, never coming back. And they were like, tell me some good news. I'm like, yeah, I don't have a lot of that right now. I mean, it's going to be harder. We're still going to have to negotiate. We may have to negotiate harder than we've ever done before. We may have to charge the customer. And for a lot of shops, it's something they've never done before, but there's still a lot of good reasons to be here. But if you're going to stay, we need you to fight. We need you not to just accept it anymore. And we need you to push forward for change, because that's ultimately, you guys are in control of it, not any of us, right? We can just give opinions on it, but what you do in your market space, in your towns, in your cities, and with the claims that come to your door, you're the one that can make a difference. So Happy New Year. And I hope that I will see you. Well, I don't hope. I will see you all in 2025. Thanks.